Welcome to Applied Intelligence, a conversation at the intersection of people, technology, and getting stuff done. And now, here's your host, Imtiaz Ahmed.
Welcome everyone to Applied Intelligence. I have Jonathan Taylor-Miller with me today. Jonathan heads up the Taylor-Miller Group in terms of recruitment. We're going to have a conversation today in terms of recruitment and what it means in terms of the age of AI. And the question that I always love to begin my podcast with is, what's your story? How did you get here? And if your autobiography had 5 chapters, what would they be? And yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's lovely to be on. Really good. Thank you. So, what's my story? It's pretty simple. You know, I grew up in Warrington, which was kind of a new town development. My parents were I had a great childhood, but my parents were both teachers. They were both, you work, you save, you work, you save. You don't take risks out of that environment. The goal was always go to university, have an amazing career, but very much within that lane. So that's kind of what I did. I loved uni. I did it twice. I went to Glasgow for the first section and did sociology, which I quickly realised coming out of university was a completely useless degree to obtain anything. So I then had a genius idea that I'd go do HR. So I went and did a master's in HR at Leeds. And then probably while I was doing that, did absolutely no research into any of this. But while I was doing it, I realised that I was probably going to spend, if I went to work in HR, I would probably spend the rest of my career being a service to a business without having any real influence on the result. And as much as I love people in HR, you never see any CEOs who started off their career in HR. You know, it's all sales. So randomly, I just decided to get into recruitment and found for some reason that I absolutely loved it. I mean, I still do. And my recruitment career has been literally a game of two halves, because for the first 10 years I worked for other people. I did the whole start off as a grad, loads of cold calling, hammer the phones, pick up your client, do all that type of stuff that you want to do. All in the FMCG space. I've only ever worked in the FMCG space, and I made it up to a director at that business. You know, I was running multiple teams across different countries, kind of like, was like, right, I need to go somewhere else and do something else. Joined a business that was a disaster. So, and look, and this is probably why I can empathize with a lot of people when I'm talking to them about making job moves, because I made a very silly decision and joined the wrong business, what was completely the wrong time. Didn't do any research, didn't do anything. It was just purely born out of the fact that I wanted to go somewhere else. And what you do when you want to go somewhere else because you're unhappy where you are, you don't focus on what you want to get out of joining something. You just focus on leaving something. So you see so many people make these mistakes of, you know, well, this job and it's wrong. Yeah, so I lasted there for about a year, went to work for a multi-million-pound engineering recruitment company who specialised in oil and gas, and they wanted to build an FMCG division. So I went to hit that up, went to work for them, and then I just had this kind of light bulb moment one day of, look, my goal of my life, which is to live the way I do now, which is in a forest. You know, I've got chickens, I've got horses, I've got cats, I've got dogs. I'm pretty much off grid, bar electricity. That was never going to happen. That was never going to happen if I followed the corporate route of X, Y, and Z. I was never going to get there. So I decided 10 years ago, 10 years in November, last November, I decided to go on my own. And yeah, it was interesting. It was really, really interesting. I was really lucky. Loads of clients came with me and said, Jonathan, we'll work with you. And that was amazing. But unfortunately, at that point in my life, I knew nothing about running a business. I knew nothing about finance, particularly. I knew nothing about marketing. I knew none of these things. So I got myself into a complete mess. I'm not going to lie, it was a complete disaster. I ran out of cash after about 6 months, and I ended up having to work in the post office. I worked in the post office for a year, doing 60 hours a week, doing 6 in the evening till 6 in the morning, sorting parcels, going home, getting about 2 hours sleep, getting up, doing some recruitment, and just eat, sleep, repeat until I made the business work in terms of cash flow. And it was really funny because while I was doing all this, I had the call with this bloke, and he said to me, "Look, Jonathan, I need a new job." And I was like, "Right, okay, so what's up?" And he said, "Well, I've started this business. It's an app, and it's about recommending restaurants." And I'm not going to say the geographical area, but it was a bit weird. And I thought there was no legs in it. And he said, "I've done it for 4 months now, and we've run out of money, so I need to go and get a job back in the corporate world." And little did he know that at the time I was speaking to him, I'd had probably 2 hours sleep. I was absolutely on my backside. My feet were killing because I'd been pushing cages around all night. And it just gave me the thing that one of the key lessons that I will always take in life is that if you want something enough, you will make it work. Because at that point, it was a bit like a sliding doors moment for me, because I could have been that guy who I was talking to, who was going back into corporate world, who would have said, "Well, I never got the life I wanted because I didn't do it." Whereas I've really put the graft in to make sure that happened. So story-wise, I'd say, yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. It's been a bit of a journey. It's taught me a lot. It's taught me a lot about people. It's taught me a lot about particularly people who reach out and help you. Because when you run your own, when you make a move into sort of an area like that, you are completely on your own. You have no network. And particularly because of my upbringing, I never knew anyone who ran their own business. So it wasn't like I could phone my dad and say, "Dad, what would you do in this situation? Dad, do you know a really good accountant? Dad, do you know someone who's really good at market? Do you know someone who can make me a website?" I couldn't do any of those things. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't do any of those things.
Wow.
I just kind of had to figure it all out. And I love it, and I love the challenge of it. But when I look back at it, it's like, yeah, but it is true. You can do anything. You can be anything. You can get to wherever you want in life. I mean, I'm really lucky. I'm kind of where I want to be. You've got to put the effort in to want it.
How did you pull yourself out of those dark places when it felt too hard?
You focus on where you want to be. You have to focus on it's not forever. And I could have easily, at any point, picked up the phone and gone and got a job as a talent acquisition person, or gone and got a job in recruitment, doing exactly what I was doing. But you just have to go, no, the end point is that. The end point is that. And if you want that, you have to just roll your sleeves up. There is no magic pill. There is no silver bullet. There is no anything other than just work. If you want something, just work and it will come. And it did. And I remember the day of, right, I don't need to go to the post office anymore. I've got enough cash in the bank for the next 6 months. I don't have to go and do that. And it was lovely. It was really good. And I met some amazing people there. I made some really good friends I'm still in touch with now. But, that was the kick for me of, I don't want to do this, but I also don't want to go back and do what I'm doing. You have to make this work, because if you want that life, if you want the chickens and the horses and whatever that is, whatever your end goal out of it is, you have to work to get there. And I think that is something I will be making sure. I've got 2 daughters, and that's something I'll be making sure that I will instill pretty hard into them, is that particularly in an age of, it is a very, consumer driven, not much attention span. You can be an influencer. And look, being an influencer is work. It is, people don't get anything for nothing. But there is a sort of mentality now of, you can achieve these things without getting this. And I think that is probably because of what people see on social media all the time. But yeah, they will understand the value of work. They will understand of working for something and getting to where they need to be in life. And that comes sometimes a bit of a trade-off of, you've got to work your ass off.
So drawing a parallel with, in terms of all of the disasters that you've kind of had to manage, as well as the changes within the recruitment and HR industry coming off the back of things like LinkedIn launching, how do you think in that change, when recruitment and talent acquisition kind of changed, when LinkedIn kind of blew up, what parallels do you see with what's happening right now with AI companies popping up left, right, and center, trying to say that they can do all of these things with automation? Like, what are the key challenges that CPG companies and your customers are kind of seeing right now when it comes to this sort of stuff?
Well, they can't. I'm going to be straight. AI is not at a point yet when it can do this. Yeah. LinkedIn is brilliant for me. I make all my money out of LinkedIn. I spend all day on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is someone for me where you don't even have to own a database, because LinkedIn is effectively a live database that updates itself. Yeah. So as long as you pay your recruiter license and your recruiter fee and maximize everything out of that, you do it if you need something. Do you know what I mean? It will store all your data, it will store all your messages, it will store anything you don't need. So for someone like me, once AI is able to assist me with recruitment, it will be fantastic, because you don't then need to be a big corporate. You don't need that. I think what you will see is you will get a lot of smaller firms, a lot of more one-man bands like me, who step up and say, do you know what, if I'm smart about this, if I'm really clever at this, I will use this technology to enable me to do my job a lot better. Now, in some areas, you might be able to do that, because if you are, say, doing contract recruitment, where it doesn't really matter about cultural fit, it doesn't really matter about all of these things, you are just looking to put X to Y for 6, 9, 12 months. The ability now to search through a lot of CVs, the ability to get through a lot of stuff is amazing. Do you know what I mean? It can...
Yeah.
As in anything, it can chew through a hell of a lot of data for you incredibly quickly and give you the results that you want. But in terms of, can AI tell you about if the person from a cultural fit is right for this business? No, it can't do that. And that for me is... Look, I've had sleepless nights. Of course I have. I'm not daft, though. You know, is AI going to destroy my business? Am I going to end up back in the post office? Or probably won't be a post office now. It'll be an Amazon warehouse. You know?
Yeah.
But I think until AI comes up with an issue of being able to solve that problem, then I'm not massively concerned about what I do. And it will, you know, I can use AI already on LinkedIn to do assisted searches. Do you know what I mean? It speeds up my day. So yeah, it's a great tool, but it can't get the end point of, yeah. So I mean, I'll give you a really good example, right? I had an offer for a candidate this morning, right? That was a candidate I put, so they briefed me on a job, blah, 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 blah. I put one person in, and that one person has got the job, right? And that's all I did, because I knew from the businesses that they worked, I knew from speaking to the person, I knew from the setup of their organization that they would be right for that job and their setup of the business that they're going into. I knew that. So I was like, well, I don't need any more. I just need to do this. I need to make sure this will. AI can't do that. AI can't do that. And I don't think, because in order to find out if someone's the right cultural fit, you have to have a conversation with someone. There aren't any, I can't give you 10 questions that is going to say, is this person the right cultural fit for this business? I can't give you 20 questions. You have a conversation with them a bit like this. You probe them around certain areas. You then probe against their answers to get that out. Yeah. AI isn't at a place where A, it can do it, and B, and this might be different for future generations, but certainly if I said to one of the people I'm trying to place in a job, yeah, I need you to go and talk to this AI for half an hour to an hour. Yeah. They just go, no. Do you know what I mean? They just turn around to me and say, no, I'm not doing that. People do not have a trust of that yet. That will be, they want to speak to a person. So,
and I think this is the point people are missing, right? Like in terms of your role in recruitment and the business that you run, all of the process-driven things have become a lot faster.
Yeah.
Simply because of LinkedIn, simply because of all of the tools that we have, right? AI is just another tool that's helping you get faster at doing the mundane, boring, process-driven stuff. When it comes to that placement that you just made this morning, that's come off the back of years of experience, years of relationships, years of understanding multiple company cultures, etc. And you knew that person and you just placed them, right? Now, for an AI system to learn all of that stuff, and then for the hiring manager to have that level of trust in that AI right now, I don't see it happening at all, right? So I think there's still the major thing that AI I don't see impacting anytime soon is human relationships and human connection, right? So I think with all of the work and future that we have when it comes to the future of work, I think humans need to get better at human connection and fostering relationships and focusing on that element rather than thinking that all work is just process and automation and AI is going to kind of take it all over. So just leaning on this point, when it comes to, understanding a company's culture and values before placing a person, how do you approach that? And how do you kind of understand a company's culture? And then similarly, when you're looking at candidates, how do you assess them to see if they have that fit?
That is the $1 million. That is the $1 million question. First of all, you've got to drag it out of companies. So this is another thing that I find absolutely bizarre, right? So I will go and get any job brief for any client, yeah, and the job brief, say it's an hour, yeah, I'll get 50 minutes of them talking to me about this is the job, this is what they want someone to do, this is what we've got going on, this is how we need to do it, these are the people you need to find us, and it's always the same, it's always robot, but not a robot. There's always a template of we want someone to be the next CEO. We want someone who's got potential to be the next CEO. You get 10 minutes at the end when they say, is there anything else you want to know, Jonathan? And I'm like, well, actually there is. What's the culture of the business like? And for me, that is the most bizarre thing, because the culture of the business is the most important. The culture of the business is what makes the person, you get that right, yeah? It's what makes people stay. It's what means that they get promoted, and it's what means that they're really successful, and it means that it's a really successful match for the client, and it really means it's a really successful match for the candidate. That is the fundamental crucial bit of any recruitment process. I can find you X amount of people who've all got the same skill set. Yeah, there's always going to be X amount of people with the same skill set, but there's going to be less that fit your culture. So the first big point is you have to pull it out of them, sometimes like with a pair of pliers to get them to talk about the culture. And I'm lucky enough that because I've done this for 20 years now, and I talk to, I spend my life either messaging people on LinkedIn or talking to people. And because I know inherently what a culture of a business is like now, because you don't get the culture of the business from someone saying to me, well, we're all about flexible working, we're all about this, we're all about blah, blah, blah. Again, if you ask people what the culture is, they will just trot stuff from their website, from their, and these are all our key values, and I understand the culture of a business from my network, from knowing what that business is like, from knowing what they're doing, from knowing how they're performing, to knowing the individual line managers within businesses to be able to understand that. Yeah. And then how do I make sure a candidate is a fit? Well, look, there's one really easy metric, and then and the easy metric you can use to just filter all of this down is go. If they want someone from that culture, if the culture of the business is X, yeah, you go and find someone from a business who works at a similar culture. Because there is, if you look at like Mars, I've been Mars's most successful external recruiter for the past 10 years in the UK. And I'd say most of the people I've got from Unilever, because they're a similar culture. So it's really easy to go X to Y. Yeah. If you're taking from that outside, if you're taking from outside of that environment, yeah. So if I was working for a business and was speaking to a candidate from who's at the opposite culture, what you're asking them, what you're flagging into then is stuff all, why do you want to leave? Do you like the culture of where you work? Yes, no. And then you filter it down that way. There is you take from a candidate perspective, you take your lead from what the candidate is saying. Because it doesn't matter how good they are. It doesn't matter if they can change the world. If they're not going to fit in the culture, right, they're never going to stay ever. And I'm really proud of the fact that if you were to go on my LinkedIn and go and see all the people I've placed over the years, and they've all got, they're all trading on at least 3 promotions within their current business. That's how I know it works. That's how I know, and that's probably, I'd say, why I've been successful, is because I place my first emphasis on any hiring process on getting the cultural fit right. And I don't think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of people will be very transactional and be more about, well, is it the right skill set? Does it fit within this salary banding? And they don't do that. And you have to be you've got to be a bit pushy as well, because the companies don't want to really tell you about the stuff that's bad within the business or the stuff that doesn't maybe they don't want to, this is not we don't buy all this data. We actually don't do this. Actually, you'll have to get down and dirty and do all this work. And it's like, well, that's the stuff I need to know.
So in terms of driving your success, and, it's very impressive, your LinkedIn following of over 30,000 people, by the way. How do you think, in terms of building your reputation, both in the offline world and in the online world, what do you think drives that success? Like, from speaking to you, Jonathan, I think a part of this is authenticity in terms of the way that you tell your stories and the way that you're building your relationships. But what else is it that you do that makes the work that you do so special?
I think I'm really straight. I would say I am pretty much, I wouldn't say filter free, because, everyone can have a filter to some point.
You have to have a filter, yes.
But I think I've reached a point in my life where I am very comfortable with who I am. I'm very comfortable with what I do. I'm very comfortable with the business I run. And I think that allows me a certain, I won't say flexibility, but that sort of mode allows me to be very truthful to people. I don't care if I'm speaking to the CCO or, a sales exec or whatever. I will tell them all the same message. I might wrap it up slightly, but I will tell them all the same message. And I think that's probably what I think people find quite refreshing, is that I'm able to do it in such a way. And then I think the second part is, if you go and work for, and I know this because I've worked in big corporate recruitment, is that they will all have KPIs. You've got to send this many CVs, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to do that, because if you look at the way that they operate, it is very numbers driven. It is very, you have to. So in order to make a placement, you've got to send this many CVs, you've got to do this many interviews a week, you've got to do this many phone calls, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to do the other. So what you end up doing is you don't value add, right? You carpet bomb stuff, because it is very much the case of, well, we've got to stick, my manager says I need to stick 3 CVs into this job and get 3 interviews out of it to make it successful. Yeah. Now, the whole point of me being the whole point I feel of me doing what I'm doing for a client is that I will save them time, right? And the time is, if I can give you 1 candidate instead of 3, why would I give you 3? And that for me, it's a big thing. And I think I think there's probably some metrics behind it to say that, a lot of, your micropage or whatever, they don't want to do that. So they'll shove everything at it. And then also, I think along with that is, that takes, and I'd say when I'm dealing with clients, that is the first thing that takes them a while to get their head round, is the fact that, look, I'm here to save you time. Like, I'm here to save you time. You will get the CVs when you get the CVs, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? Interview them, offer them. It's very rare I work on a role that I don't place. It's very rare because of the way I do it. It's just very straightforward and very, I'll add value to your business. I'll add value by saving you time that allows you to get on with what you want to do. And I'll add value because the person I want to place in your business will probably get promoted 3 times.
So it's all about quality over quantity.
It's never about quantity. And that's why I don't think, going back to what we were talking about earlier about AI. AI isn't at the point yet when it can deliver the quality, right? It's at a point where it can crunch you through 300 CVs that have applied for this Scrum Master, whatever job. Yeah. It's at the point where it can do that. What it can't do is then provide the quality at the end, which is why AI, for now, is not going to steal my job.
Talking about diversity and inclusion, you're an advisory board member on 100 Allies. How do you advocate for diversity and inclusion in recruitment, and what impact have you seen from these efforts?
So I would say I'm really glad you've asked me this question, because I think this is something that I find incredibly paradoxical in businesses, is that as a recruiter, and I've been really candid with you now, as a recruiter, you can have an incredibly tiny impact in this space, which is why when I saw they were setting up 100 Allies, I was really keen to get involved, and I've been fortunate enough to be invited onto the advisory board of that, because I can say what I want. my message can be what it is. But I think there is a disconnect between what companies say and what they actually do. So if you go onto any big CPG company website, it will say all the right things that are all about diversity. But when you actually get down to the nuts and bolts of it, do they live and breathe that? No. Are there in-house recruiters trained in recruiting in a diverse way? No. Right? They're not. And if I'm honest with you, it's the line managers more than the recruiters, because the in-house recruiter, so the talent acquisition person, they are there to deliver a service to their line manager, right? And their line manager comes to them and says, I want this person, I need someone to fill this, And they're always like, I need someone who's done it before. I need someone who doesn't want any wants minimum training. I want them to be capable of being the next CEO. So what happens is that they constantly fish from the same pool. So while the company can say it's committed to diversity, it's not. And that is a really blunt and really truthful answer. They are not committed to diversity because there is no diversity in any of their hiring practices at all. It is just, get me what I've had before, get me a junior version of me. I mean, and it was really bad. I'm not going to shame anyone because, I'm not, it's not what it is.
This is widespread. It's not exclusive to anyone, right?
No, it's not. It's right across the board. But I saw a picture on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, right? And I need to be careful how I say it. But it was a celebration of some form of achievement. And I looked at the picture. And the first thing I thought is, everyone in this picture is white, Probably 70% of them are males. They've probably all got a degree. They've probably all been a grad scheme. Now, I know that this is a company that has diversity all over its website.
Yep.
And many of these companies will win, they'll win awards for their diversity policy and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But in reality, it's nothing. Which is why when I saw the opportunity to join 100 Allies, I really wanted to do it, and I've put some efforts into this, and we're having a huge launch, I think, in October, start of October, because I think in order to really change diversity, the diversity of thought and diversity of hiring and, diversity of experience within the industry, you are going to fundamentally have to change things within businesses. You can't just put stuff on a website and say, we are now diverse, we now have this policy, because if you don't do it in practice, it means absolutely nothing. I mean, I was talking to, this is how even in insights, right? This is how narrow the field is. So say I get a job for an insights role, for example. I'm using insights as an example. This could apply to any other sector or any other function, but insights is a really good example. So I'll get a job from the insights role. And one of the questions you'll ask them during the process, well, would you take anyone from an agency, a data agency business? And the answer is always no. The answer is always no. The answer is well, not always, but 90% of the time, the answer is always no. The answer is no. We want someone from a big CPG business who's done this before. So that shows you how narrow diversity is, that they won't even consider someone, never mind anything else, never mind before we even get down to that track, but they won't even take someone who could do the job from a sector that they're working in because they've not worked for a client before. So then when you start to look at the building blocks of this and how ingrained it is within businesses, that's when you start to see, well, actually, how are these, unless you do fundamental training with hiring managers, with the C-suite, with all of this stuff, how are you ever going to get a diversity policy in that works? You're not. You are fundamentally going to have to go in and change attitudes, because it is, at the end of the day, you can have all the diversity policy you want, but it's the hiring manager that makes the decision on who is hired. So therefore, that is the person that needs to be educated, reformulated, reprogrammed, whatever you want to call it, because that is the person that is going to gatekeep whether that business will be a diverse business or not.
Speaking from experience, the most innovative teams that I've ever been a part of. I've had a previous hiring manager who would on purpose hire outside of CPG to fill roles, mainly because we're like, we need to think about things differently. We need to think differently to what our competitors would actually do. And if your competitors are only hiring CPG people or FMCG people, and you're doing exactly the same thing, you're not going to get new ideas. You're going to get what they've always done. Yeah. And you're most likely going to recycle ideas from 3 or 4 years ago that didn't work somewhere else and magically it's going to work now. It's amazing how it almost feels like a lot of DEI initiatives are, corporate marketing to say that we're doing the right things, but in reality, not that much has changed, unfortunately. And there's only like very small pockets where we're seeing the real shift actually happening. And I agree with you. It has to be from the business side and or the hiring manager side, because I think the recruiters within an organization are enacting what the business is asking them to do, fill this particular role. Like outside of, getting, I guess, a people strategy from the top down to ensure that we have a divergence or we have diversity. To really do diversity, you need business buy-in, top-down buy-in, and that it needs to be an overall people strategy that recruiters are a part of or the HR team is part of, rather than just receiving a brief right at the end of the hiring process and then just go find me more people that look like this.
I would say that the manager you probably worked for then that has created this diverse team is an outlier. Because most of them aren't like that. Most of them aren't that forward thinking into go, right, well, we need to get someone else. And what you find is that, particularly what I find, because, look, CPG businesses, they're all slow adopters of tech anyway. They always have been, and they always will be. So what you then find is like no one is going at any pace because everyone is like, well, I'm going to get someone from there to do this, but they've never done it either. Really, to any extent. And then there is also an age thing of, well, we don't want to take that person because they're clearly too young to do that. And you're like, yeah, but you don't understand that they've used that tech for whatever amount of time. So they're really good at it and they're going to be way better than you're ever going to be at it. So you need to sort of go, yeah, let's just kind of up this. I mean, I was doing some posts for LinkedIn yesterday about what you achieve in life by certain goals, and just basically saying, look, don't beat yourself up because, what's the point? Everyone achieves things at different times. And one of the things I saw was the fact that the average new director in the UK is 55. And to me, that's just criminal. It's like, how is that? How are you ever going to keep on top of what you need, particularly when the world's changing so fast? When you've got at the moment, you've got, we've not just got AI, we've got completely new ways of selling through TikTok, through Instagram, through all of this stuff. You've got a generation that has completely different values. And we look at the state that Unilever's at the moment. It's trying to divest of itself of everything, and their Unilever venture team is trying to buy up any new up-and-coming brand that it thinks, might be valuable in the next 20 years. And you kind of think you've got all that going on. If you're only making people a director at 55, where are all these people who understand what's going on now and what their generation are going to want to buy for the next 10 years? What the hell do we do with all of them?
That's an amazing point. Coming back to perception versus reality, one of the things about Gen Z is they really look at the difference between what you say and what you do. Yeah. And as an employer, if you have all of this positive messaging around DEI, you're not actually doing it, the next generation of the workforce is really going to call you out for it, and they're going to be disengaged with you, and they're going to keep flipping and switching companies and not stay with you in the long term as well. So again, coming back to authenticity, you got to walk the walk. You can't just keep talking about it.
Well, I have, and again, not naming names, I've noticed that over the past 5 years, there's been a huge trend of businesses that I could never extract people from. Yeah, they would never want to leave because they were, they were perceived as being the best out there to work there. Now, some of these businesses are now on a massive talent drain because they're putting the stuff up on the website, but they live it and breathe it. And then the people get in there and they find that out, and then they're like, well, I'm gone. I'm going to go work somewhere that actually lives and breathes what they say they live and breathe in. It's interesting, I think, to see how the landscape is going to change, because I think there's a few big CPG businesses that are functioning at the moment in what I would say is a huge bubble of, we've always done it this way, we're always going to do it this way. Yeah, we might change some brands out, we might swap some brands in, we might do this, we might do that. But I don't think they understand that what they're building currently is a completely, A, they're building a very disengaged workforce, and B, the talent that they would want to usually attract is not going to come and work for them. And I don't think they understand that within a few years, that company can go from, but if you don't get these things right, from a moral point of view, you should be diverse anyway. But if you don't get these things right from a business point of view, you ain't going to be there. It's nuts.
It's really crazy. Shifting gears a bit, balancing a high pressure business like recruitment with living in the forest, out in the woods with your animals, that sounds kind of, one, fun, two, unique. How do you manage work-life balance given all these things that you do?
I have a very random work-life balance, I would say. So my work schedule is really, really erratic. So I'll work all day, but then I'm very clear on the fact that whatever time it is, 4:30, 5 o'clock, we eat as a family. We always eat as a family. Doesn't matter what. And I have to physically not be here for us to not eat as a family. We will always eat as a family. We will always, I will always do a bedtime story. I'll always do a shower, whatever that needs to be. Then I'll go out and mess around with the animals and, do the feeding, collect the eggs, water, whatever that is. And then, most nights I work till midnight. Yeah, and I work till midnight on a Sunday. I work till midnight probably 5 days a week, not on a Friday. I'd say the only day I don't do any work is Saturday. And again, I think that goes back to the fact that if you want something, you've got to put the work in. Do you know what I mean? This is the lifestyle I want. So, I've built probably my business around the lifestyle I wanted to achieve, because I could hire people. Do you know what I mean? I've got enough contacts. I can get enough business. I can go and hire people if I want. That's not really an issue. But I don't want to be driving somewhere to be in an office every day telling people what to do. I was a manager before. I hated it. I was terrible at it. I loved doing recruitment. I love talking to people. So I really like my job and I really like my life, and I don't really ever want to mess with that. So, but you have to, you work out a structure. And again, this is why I'm lucky that I don't exist in a corporate environment, because I couldn't do what I do if I existed in a corporate environment. And in some ways, it was really funny, because during COVID, everyone would start working in the same way as me. And I was like, oh, you finally caught up.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for years. You don't need to think the benefits of it. To me, I've been doing this for years.
Yeah. So I had a remote team for 5 years before COVID, and COVID was just like, oh, so we're just going to keep doing what we've always done.
Yeah.
So it wasn't much of a switch for me either. But I think for many other people it was.
Yeah, but I think the irony is that companies now are pulling people out of that, and they're being a lot more hardcore and want you back in the office 4 days a week, 5 days a week, 3 days a week. There seems to be a huge crackdown on it. Was it? It was the business in the States where they said, we will not hire you, we will not promote you if you work. Was it Dell? We will not promote you if you work remotely. It was a tech company. I think it might have even been Dell, because I remember laughing about it, going, so you're a business that is going to sell me stuff that enables to work remotely, but you actually don't want your employees to work. No, but I think their employees, and I really love this, their employees made a stand and said, we're not going to accept that, because they were like, if you don't come back to the office, we won't promote you. Yeah, and I think over 50% of their employees turned around and said, well, no. And they've actually overturned now the thing of we won't promote you, which I think is really good. Is, you've got to stand up for what you want.
For sure. But I do think, specifically when you're at the start of your career, coming into the office and physically interacting with other people, is very important. Like I remember at the beginning when I was a grad, I thought I knew it all coming fresh out of university, doing very well at university. I thought I knew all this stuff. And then I got a dose of reality and, cut down to size into the corporate world. But I really needed that, right? Now, if you work in a remote space and you don't get that mentorship and you don't necessarily understand business etiquette, relationship building in the physical world, I think you're going to struggle as well. So I think there needs to be a balance at, multiple levels of your career. But I don't 100% remote, personally not for me, but there needs to be a balanced approach to this as well.
No, look, I agree with you on that. And I was talking to someone about this today because they were talking, they were saying, look, we need to do some stuff and change the culture of the business and stuff like that. And I said, well, look, you are going to have to, even if it is for X amount of months or a year or 12 months, you're going to have to hire people and bring them in and make them be in the office a little bit more, because you cannot build the culture of a business if everyone is 100% remote.
Yep.
There is no culture in a business. So there has to be a healthy balance. There has to be a healthy, the water cooler conversations. There has to be a healthy balance. But I think it's getting the balance right and also making, the way I've seen it handled is, it's not great. You want to make people feel like they have the choice, not just do this or get another job. Don't do this, don't get it. Do you know what I mean? That's not the way to do it. Their parents, everyone's an adult. We should kind of be able to have these conversations pretty open book and just say, well, look, what's going to work and what's not going to work.
On a personal front, what habits and productivity hacks make your life easias?
So these are things that I've had to become really, really really ruthless about. So because there's a one man, chicken man, flock, whatever brand, right? I can get really busy doing nothing if I want. So I have to be really, really, really focused on stuff. And look, all of my recruitment is on success only. So I don't charge retainers. I don't do any of this. So to get to the nuts and bolts of it, I've got to put people in jobs. Otherwise, the chickens aren't getting fed. It's as simple as we might be eating it. No, obviously not. But you've got to have some base rules. So I'm pretty clear about what I do, and there's some stuff like, so I have a 1 week rule. I have unless someone's got I'm not that draconian. There are always exceptions, but pretty much I have a 1 week rule of anything that I deal with anyone, and it is, if it takes you more than a week to do something, you're not that arsed about it. So if it takes you more than a week to write your CV, bad. If it takes you more than a week to spend it to send me a job spec, bad. If you can't write a presentation for a job interview in a week, bad. Because I just think if you want something enough, and I get told, I can't do this, I'm too busy. And I'm like, no. If you want something enough, you will make the time to do it. If it is that important to you, you will make the time to do it. So I use that barometer as, is this worthwhile me doing? Because I'm very much, look, if you put the effort in, I'll match your effort. I will help you get that job. I will get you the right person. I will do all of this. But I've got to understand that it's your priority. So my 1 week rule is very clear. And look, sometimes it does, if someone's ill or whatever, as a personal thing, it's going to change slightly. But yeah, I'm pretty
essentially
hard. It's how much you want it. Yeah, it's how much do you want it. And I spoke to someone on the end of last week, and they were like, "Well, I've really busy, and we've got some stuff. We bought some new furniture for the house, and I'm not going to don't think we're going to get time to do my CV." And I was really blunt with it, and I can be pretty blunt sometimes. And I just said, "Well, look, let's be honest. If you want it, you'll stop putting your jeans in a wardrobe for an hour and sort your CV out. If you don't want it, you'll carry on sorting your jeans out, and that's life." And do you know what? I've never heard from him since. And I filled the job. So I kind of just think, well, I want to deal with people who want it. I want to deal with people who that is a priority for. So that is really, really key. And I think sometimes when I tell people, because I tell people it all the time. So I'm pretty, I've got a reel on it, my Instagram, for God's sakes. I'm pretty straightforward. And I think when I tell people that, they're a bit shocked, but I'm like, well, it is what it is. The rule is something. If you want something, you'll make the time to do it. So, and then I think next is very much, I'm a big believer in the valuation of time as a really, really expensive currency, right? Because it is the only thing. I can make more money. I can make whatever. Yeah. You can always make more of something. I can't make more of time. Every day, my currency of time gets less and less and less and less and less. I really figure if people want to waste my time, then get rid of it, because I'm only interested in people dealing people who value it. And it's exactly the same to me, you know. If I'm going to deal with you, I will value your time. I will give you my 100%. I will do this. But you have to surround yourself in life with people that A, value what you say, but B, more importantly, they value your time, because it's the most precious thing that you've got. So I get a really bugbear of, one of my biggest bugbears is, say I've booked in time to speak to someone or something like that, and they just don't show up, or, you know, whatever. I'm just like, we'll see you then, because you don't value it. You don't value me. You don't value the job. You don't value the conversation. So see you later. It's one strike. It's pretty much, unless someone's got a decent excuse, it's pretty much one strike you're out. I'm just gone, because there's always someone who wants to talk about something, and that person might be really engaged and really keen about what you're going to say. So yeah, and I think other ones is evolution. You go back to talking about AI. This doesn't matter how big or small or whatever size you are. If you do not evolve what you're doing, how you do it, and sometimes evolution to me is painful, because particularly a lot of stuff around social media I'm not great at. But if you don't evolve, you're gone. You are gone. And that will come back to it'll come back to a brand, it will come back to a business, it will come back to a value stream, it will come back to anything. You can very quickly become obsolete. You know, if I look at sort of phases of my evolution of the business, I mean, in terms of what areas we're recruiting in, they've changed. How I do it, how I adapt, and how I respond is completely changed. And you have to be. And then I think the big thing, another really big thing for me, which I use as a massive filter, is me. And I know that probably sounds really weird, but it is just, look, I am really comfortable in who I am. And I saw this phrase that, you know, always bashes around in my head, which is, I'd rather be disliked for who I am than be liked for somebody that I'm not. Yeah. Huge believer in this, because I think if you are you, and you are you to true to yourself in terms of what you put out there in the universe, how you are and stuff like that, you will attract the people that want to work with you. You'll attract the people that want to spend time with you. You will attract the people who just want to do stuff with you. All the people that don't just won't even approach you. So then you immediately get this filter off, well, you know what? I don't have to deal with all that stuff that maybe people think I'm a bit nuts or a bit out or a bit weird. You don't have to deal with all that anymore, because you only end up speaking to the people who value what you've got to say and want to be in your orbit. So for me, since I started being, and this isn't something I've always been comfortable doing. You know, there was always this big fear of, well, if I say this, if I do that, if I truth bomb in this way, if I give my opinion in this way, you know, am I going to have people who say, well, actually, Jonathan, we don't want to do any work with you? And I kind of think, well, as long as I'm not saying offensive, I'm not saying anything offensive, I'm not being anything offensive, I'm just being authentically me. And I kind of think, well, that's all right.
Sure.
And that, for me, was probably a massive penny drop moment in the fact that, look, you can be who you want. You will attract the people that you want to work with, and the people who don't want to work with you. I mean, look, since I started putting pictures of me holding a chicken up on the internet, yeah, I've not lost one client. I'm not turned around and said to anyone that said, I don't want to speak to you. I've not had anyone ask me if I'm insane, right? I've not had any of those things. What I've had is a load of people say to me, yeah, it's all right, quite like what you're doing, figure out where you're saying it, and all those things, yeah? There probably is a ton of people out there who don't want to work with me, don't want to speak to me, but they'll never come into my orbit. So, who cares? And then I think linked to that, and this is from what's it most important? But I keep bashing it. I keep saying it all the time on my like social media. Just fucking do it, right? At some point, I'll probably get hopefully, if I ever make it that big, I'll get a cease and desist letter from Nike. That's my goal. That's my goal. Them to write to me and say, Jonathan, you cannot say just fucking do it.
I think I know some people at Nike that could reach out to you.
That's awkward, because I'm sure I can get some content out of that as well. There is, and again, you can link this back to what we were talking about right at the start with AI and CPG companies and this general fear. You get a paralysis of analysis of, what if I do this? What's going to be the endpoint? What if I do that? What's going to be the endpoint? What's going to be the worst that can happen? And do you know what? Nothing bad's not going to happen. So just fucking do it. Just get on with it. Do you know what I mean? Just do it. Just like, stop messing about. Stop thinking about it. Whatever it is, a post, a bit of tech you're thinking of introducing to your business, whatever that thing might be, a person you're thinking asking out on a date, just do it, man. Just fucking do it. Because if you do, apart from the cease and desist letter, I'll probably get to through. Nothing really bad is going to happen in life. And you'll probably end up being a little bit better for doing it.
Love it. Jonathan, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. And how can people reach out to you if they want to find out more about you?
Best thing's always LinkedIn, or probably WhatsApp, or just send me a DM on Instagram. Don't email me, because my inbox is flooded with emails from people trying to sell me AI to improve my recruitment.
I love it. Jonathan, again, thank you so much for being on the show today. I wish you all the very best, and all of Jonathan's links to his social media and all the wonderful things that he does will be in the show notes as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy. It's been an absolute pleasure.